Hello, my name's Tom Carhill. It's just turned now. It's the 22nd of October 2013. Right. I want to do a quick video about the Data Protection Act. Right now, maybe you buy this, maybe you don't. But for a long time, there's been a plan, numerous aspects of a plan where everything in England is called like the opposite of what it is. So, for instance, you get like the Ministry of War was then called the Ministry of Defence, and you've got like they call things like the opposite. So you've got like the Independent Police Complaints Commission. It's not independent. It's run by a load of bent coppers, and it doesn't independently inquire. It just tells the police to investigate themselves, and surprise, surprise, they come back to the conclusion that they didn't do anything wrong. Solicitors Regulation Authority catches solicitors doing completely bent stuff, does absolutely nothing about it. Have to have they have to be almost like guilty of murder before they'll actually even give them a slap on the wrist. They never kick anybody out. It's a complete con. But try as you might to tell people this, they will go, no, it's a conspiracy theory. But that's the reality of it. And again, a lot of people, if you just go to work every day and you never look up from the ground, you'll probably go on believing this forever. And it's up to you. Believe whatever you want. Point is, right, the Data Protection Act, right, and the other one that gets mixed up with it is the Freedom of Information Act, right? They kind of get mixed up because you've got the Data Protection Act, and then you've got the Freedom of Information, and you get data protection subject access request. But Freedom of Information is about a firm that you've got. Is it Data Protection Act? Yeah, Data Protection Act. Under that, you can request information from a firm that's about you that they hold. And it's a very good way of causing firms problems because it costs them a lot of money to do it, and depending on how much they've got on you. And you can always keep questioning, saying, what about that other thing? What about that other thing? And then they have to spend ages looking, and it costs them loads. And it's a quite good way of giving them some shit sort of thing if they're causing you problems. And I'd highly recommend it. I think you should just use it totally indiscriminately to cause people. If they cause you problems, get them with that one. It's always it's a brilliant one. Anyway, the point is the Data Protection Act request is always abused by big companies, and they will always go, "Oh, it's Data Protection Act. We can't do anything about this." Like you phone up and you complain about someone, they'll go, "We can't possibly tell you what's happened." It's like, hang on a minute. If somebody's done something wrong with that firm, they should be jumping over themselves, say, "Look, we sacked them because that was totally unacceptable." They don't say that anymore now. Right? What you've got to do, and this links very, very closely to dealing with banks and credit cards and stuff like that. When you haven't paid, or like if you get one of those plastic policemen gives you one of those little bits of paper and says you've got to pay fines. Otherwise, you get people sending you these things saying you may go to prison. All this bollocks. They can't send you to prison. It's complete fraud. But when you first see it, you think they couldn't be lying about that, could they? But they fucking could lie about it, and they do lie about it all the time. It's total criminality. It's the thin end of the wedge. It's going to be like the old days soon, where the Romans, the fire brigade used to go around setting fires to things if you didn't pay them their kind of protection money. It'll be just the same in England at some stage soon if we keep going the way it is. But basically, what it is I was dealing quite a lot with like credit card companies, and what it was is I never just not paid some money they said I owed them. I would always there would always be a situation where they'd annoy me, and I'd be like, hang on a minute, if you don't sort that thing out, you're not going to get paid this month. And then they wouldn't do what I told them to, and I'd think, why? That's only reasonable what I've asked them, so why aren't they doing it? And they wouldn't do it, and I thought, they just don't seem to be that keen about getting this money back. And I realised that they'll rather write off loads of money than actually doing what you say. It's not really the way they work. And I then realised it's because fractional reserve banking means the money that they're lending you isn't really worth that much. So it's not worth what they're saying you owe them. Now, this is the thing, right? When you're dealing with people like banks and that, it's like easy when you know how with lots of things. You need to get used to doing it. And once you're well versed in it, you don't have anywhere near the problems that you used to have. Like you start putting things in writing rather than talking to people on the phone because they just don't ever do what they're meant to do. and they just palm you off and start denying that things were said that were said. It just becomes a fucking nightmare. There's all sorts of things you start doing. You get used to like literally just getting like 20 letters and just throwing them in the bin because none of them look important and they're all from debt collection agencies. You get used to sort of abusing people who phone you up on the phone, who's trying to get you to pay money to them, and they just won't fuck off. And like, I was even get people from Indian call centres phoning me up and just abusing me in the middle of the night and in the day, because basically they'd phone up and I'd be abusive to them, very abusive. I would be very, very abusive to them, and then they get really, really angry and they phone me up and they start like having a go at me and just using, like, they're often Indians, and these sort of Indians from India, like not English Indians. And they'd be like saying all this stuff to me, like, and they'd be swearing, but you know when someone's foreign and they can't really swear properly and it just sounds stupid, and it'd just be hilarious. And it'd just be like, you put them on speakerphone and stuff, and it'd just be funny because people would be around, someone would phone me up, fucking this, fucking that, and it'd just be hilarious. Like, but you see, eventually, to start off with, this is depressing, and people pay these apparent debts because these scumbags are phoning them the whole time. And, a lot of the things they're saying are completely wrong, but people just can't stand it. But eventually, you have to start, like, seeing it as a bit of a laugh. And the Data Protection Act, I can tell you, it's one of the best things to talk back to them, because they're always parroting stuff. Oh, I can't tell you that because of the Data Protection Act. So if they ask, what's your, what's your name, and can I ID you, like, get your date of birth and all this business? Say, well, oh, no, I'm going to need to ID you because of Data Protection Act. And you just say it back to them, and then they sort of like give you their details. Then don't give them all of the details that they need to ID you to process the call. So you give them like where you live, one line. Don't give them your postcode, don't give them your date of birth, something like that. And then say to them, I don't want to be a Data Protection Act criminal. And then they start going into hysterics because they know that there's nothing wrong. Like, you can't compel someone to say something under the Data Protection Act. You don't have to give your ID, you don't have to let them ID you, and why would you want to if they're trying to ID you to pester you and harass you? So it's really, really funny how it works. But I would always recommend saying, because it's obviously you can't be done for being a Data Protection Act criminal. There's no such thing. The Data Protection Act is a complete con. It's just a way of big companies being able to keep important information from you that they should, under any normal moral or legal or obviously common sense ground, give you. They just don't want to give it to you. But anyway, so Data Protection Act, that's one of the good ones to say. Just a quick review of some of these people who phone me up. Normally they wouldn't be the same people more than a few times, then they'd change. But what I believe happens is each of these firms, obviously they've got to give the people at the lower end of the firm the idea that the debt is actually worth something. And at the top end of the firm, the really top debt recovery people, the ones that they send on you just before they try and take you to court or they write it off, those ones are they're a lot more knowledgeable, and they know what they can actually get away with letting you away for. Often it is a tenth, or somebody told me it's 8.9, but I think it's more like a tenth of what the debt is. Now, you can have a lot of fun with them. It's when they go, great. But there was this guy from Scotland once, excellent. Like he phoned me up. He sort of caught me on the hop, and he was like, ah! And he was called Mr. McDowd. Now I only ever spoke to him twice, but it's burned into my head. He was so angry and he was so shouty. I was the first time he phoned me, I was just shocked. I was in a state of terror. I have to admit it. He did a very good job. My name is Mr. McDowd. And the thing is, the next time he phoned up, I said, no, don't worry, I'll get my stuff together and I'll speak to you tomorrow. He phoned me up, and I said, all right, Mr. McDowd, who's it? And I said, what's your first name? This is very impersonal. He says, you'll call me Mr. McDowd. And I said, well, Hamish, I'm not going to call you Mr. McDowd because you know my first name, and I don't know, I think you're just being unnecessarily aggressive, and I think I'm going to call you Hamish from now on. And I said, now, right, me and my friend have been discussing you since yesterday, and we realise that you can't give us out your personal mobile on the phone, but we think you've got a bright career in corporate speaking at events. So I'm going to give you my personal number, and I suggest you make a note of it. Don't worry, I'll say it 3 times, you'll definitely get it. Please phone me through. And then he's going, I haven't got any time for this. You're being ridiculous. And I said, you're on speakerphone. Like, did you? In this lad who was standing at the time was laughing. He was very funny, and this guy was just like absolutely. The first time it only works once. These people, they can be very good though. They can really, really, really like. I mean, he did put the fear. He would have put the fear of God into anyone. I mean, it doesn't matter how tough you thought you were. If he catches you on the hop, that guy, you'd just be in a complete state of shock. But you see, all of these people who work for these firms, they're all on sort of slightly different deals, and definitely they have them in different offices working for the same firm, but also they always use lots of different firms to do it for the same like apparent debt. So you'll get them calling from somewhere like Liverpool, but that will be after India, and then you'll get some more respectable place in England. It sort of goes from different places, and definitely the Scousers are good ones, because when the Scousers phone you up, they try and hide the Scouser accent, but you can tell they're Scousers, and they say, "Hey, you owe this money," and you're sort of saying, "What, have you never owed any money in your life?" And they're going, like I said, "Look, I just can't really take you seriously because, like, you're saying that I owe like 10 grand to a bank. That's breach of contract. I don't have to pay that back because they're trying to make out you a criminal." And I go, I mean, how many jobs have your entire family ever had between them? And they just, "Hey, that's rude. You're not allowed to say that. Hey, you're offensive. We're going to call the police on you." And you're like, "Call the police? You fucking kidding me? You fucking Scouse thief." Listen, how much, come on, let's be honest, what, in the last week, how many shops have you, and they just start there. It's very, very amusing. The Scouser ones you can have a lot of fun with. The Scottish ones tend to be a bit too serious, and you can't really have too much fun with them. But again, they're very pedant for the rules. They're fucking rule-orientated Scottish people, aren't they? Well, the ones who speak in call centres are. So they will, if you kind of wind them up, they'll be very insistent that you've got to do this and you've got to do it. And it's just like, they're a little bit hard to sort of, but they're easier to wind up. They get very angry, it can be a good laugh. But the point with these things is, to start off with, it's not a good laugh and it will pull you down. That's the whole point of it. But when you get used to it, after a while, it just becomes fun. And then after a while after that, it gets to the point where you just can't even be bothered to talk to them because you've tried slagging them off, you've tried taking the piss out of them, and you get to the point where you just can't really, you're just not interested in it at all. You just got no interest because to start off with, you want to test little things out on them, But anyway, that's my little thing. Use the Data Protection Act request. And always claim you don't want to be a Data Protection Act criminal, and that riles them up like you will not believe. As soon as you start saying that, especially if you like giggle afterwards to let them know that you're taking the piss out of them, they get extremely angry.